Okay, so welcome to our webinar on the class observation system, guidance for observers. If you're a lead agency or a site coordinator, there is a separate webinar for you that is tailored for your purposes. This one is for observers. So to start off, let's take a little look at what we're going to go through today. We're going to start with looking at the coordinated observation expectation, and then we're going to switch over and do an overview of the class observation system. Then I want to do a walkthrough of the online portal, just kind of seeing what you can do, give you some examples. And we'll round up by talking through what supports exist for you as an observer. So coordinated observation expectations. During each observation period, every classroom must be observed once, and 10% of classrooms at a site must be shadow scored. Now, each year there are 2 observation periods. There's a fall and a spring, just like a semester. Fall observation period runs from August 1st to December 15th. The spring observation period runs from January 1st to May 15th. During both of those, every classroom should be observed by a reliable observer at least once, and 10% of classrooms at every site should be shadow scored in both the fall and the spring. Remember that observations should be submitted no later than 10 business days after they're completed, and that all observations are scheduled by either the lead agencies for local observers or by ULL for third-party observers. Another thing to keep in mind is that a classroom configuration does not change over the course of the school year. What we mean by that is that if the majority of the children in a classroom are of toddler age at the beginning of the year and over the year they become pre-K age, that classroom is still considered to be a toddler classroom and should be observed using the toddler tool. A couple of things to keep in mind as you're entering observations. The portal will cause you to time out if you've been logged into the system for an extended period of time. So we want to talk through some ways that we can avoid that, as well as some other hiccups that sometimes you can encounter. So when you're doing this, and anytime you're interacting with the portal, really, you should only be using a computer, a desktop, or a laptop. Don't use a smartphone or a tablet. It is not formatted to do that properly. You could have some functionality issues, and a chief concern is if something doesn't save correctly. We don't want you to lose your work. Make sure you limit the time between each cycle when you're entering in your scores. If you need a longer amount of time between a cycle, just save and log out. You can always log back in and continue whenever you're ready. This is to avoid one of those timeout issues. If you need to select the other field, just be sure that you include a brief description of no more than 40 characters. Always log out after each observation has been submitted. You can log back in and do your next one. If you don't, though, you could run into some timeout issues. And lastly, when you're inputting negative classroom scores, put it in exactly as you've scored it. Don't convert it first. If you convert it first, the computer will then convert it again, and we'll wind up with a score that is pretty far from what the original would be. So the class system will convert the score for you, so just put in that original score. So here's an overview of the permissions that are available to you as an observer in the system. For context, at the very top here, we've got the DOE coordinator, which is me and a couple other people here at the department. We have access to pretty much everything within the portal, regardless of network and regardless of site. We can usually fix a problem or get somebody out of trouble if we've deleted something we shouldn't have. Below us are the network coordinators, which are the lead agencies. They have a lot of jurisdiction as well, just it's constrained to the network that they're operating in. Their primary function with you as an observer is they're going to be the ones that set up local observations and schedule those. That is their responsibility, and only they can do it. Likewise, if you're a third-party observer, the third-party coordinator, or PCARD, are the ones that are going to set up all third-party observations. And so that's going to be their primary role in the portal as well. Below both of those are the site coordinators. The site coordinators are just what they sound like. They're the ones in charge of all the individual sites that you'll be going to. They set up classrooms and can edit certain things within the portal. You probably won't have too much interaction with their role on the portal, although you might interact with them in person whenever you're at a site. And then below them are observers and the resource and referral agencies. For you, the observer, your only real interaction here is going to be logging into the system to see what observation orders you have, and then inputting your observation results once they're completed. And so now we're going to look at just what I just mentioned. We're going to look at how to do that and what the process is going to look like. This legend is a series of icons that you're going to see whenever you're in the portal. You're not going to have to worry about too many of them. The green arrow icon is one that you might click on occasionally, as is the blue arrow icon, along with the blue paper icon and the green form icon. Don't be intimidated by those. They're pretty intuitive, and we're going to show you what each of them they look like on the actual page. So once the lead agency or the network coordinator has assigned your observation, and they have your email, you will receive an email with the observation order letting you know that it's time to take a look at that. It's going to come from the address early.childhood@smtp.does.louisiana.gov. You might want to think about making sure that your spam or junk folders are not reading that as spam or junk. That can happen often. And once you receive the email, you're going to open it and you're going to see an image that looks just like what's right here. So it'll have your name, it'll have the site, it'll have the address of the site, it'll have the classroom that you'll be going to, the lead teacher in that classroom, the age configuration, and the date and time. And you can follow the link that's in the email where it says Early Childhood Web Portal. If you click on that, it'll offer a chance for you to log in, and we can see the observation orders that you need to complete, or if you have observation results, you'll see where you can put those in. If you are just taking a look at your observation orders, you'll log in and you'll see a screen like this below. You'll have a blue box there that'll tell you you've been requested to make these observations. In this case, there's only one. It's probable that you'll have multiple ones displaying. And it's going to give you the same information that was in that email, the site and classroom and the age configuration and so on. If you click on that blue arrow button, that's where you'll be able to view the observation order and then eventually enter in observation information. So once you're ready to enter in those observation results, you'll click on that blue button and you're going to see a screen like this. This is where you can put in the lead teacher name, your name, who it was submitted by, which is most likely going to be you as well. If there's another adult in the room, we want to make sure and mark that. If you've just participated in a shadow scoring observation, this is where you'll enter that name. We'll come back to that though. Most observations are not going to be shadow scoring observations. You'll have a chance to click that drop-down menu and select the observation date as well as the time of arrival. And then you're going to click on that Submit and Next button to go ahead and start putting in the actual scores for your 4 cycles. And this is what that looks like. You click that Submit and Next button, and you're going to see where it says Cycle 1. You're going to have an area where you mark the number of children, the start and end time, as well as the content format and, of course, the scores that you can mark. You'll do this for each cycle. Click Submit and Next, and it'll kick you over to the next cycle. So in this case, you'll need to repeat the steps for cycles 2, 3, and 4. And as a reminder, observation orders that can be saved as they're entered, and you don't need to do them all in one sitting if you're concerned about timeout issues. Once that's all done, just be sure you mark the departure time and click the Conclude the Observation button, and then you're done entering in this observation. So, like I mentioned earlier though, let's say that you're doing a shadow scoring observation. You'll recall that 10% of classrooms at every site, each observation cycle, or forgive me, each observation period, need to be shadow scored. So it's likely that you'll be involved in this process at least once a year. So shadow scoring, first of all, is a definition. This is whenever 2 reliable class observers conduct a class observation at the same time with the goal of sharpening their observation and coding skills. We have a 5-step process for what this should look like. Step 1. First of all, somebody needs to be the observer and somebody needs to function as the shadow scorer. Step 2, you're going to arrive at the site at the same time and begin and end each cycle at the same time. Step 3, you want to independently take at least 10 minutes to score and code each of the cycles. Again, we're not discussing at this point. You want to come to these scores independently. And then step 4 is whenever you're going to come together and discuss your dimension scores and identify which ones are 2 or more off from each other. If you do have some that are 2 or more off, this is where you want to have a discussion about who has the best evidence for it and how does it align most closely with the class manual. And you want to reach a consensus on what that score should be. Step 5, after you've repeated these steps for all your cycles, you then need to generate an observer reliability score. So what does this process look like? So first of all, you're going to count the number of scores that you had that were off by 2 or more across all 4 cycles. Then subtract this number from the total possible scores, and then divide that result by the number of total scores. And this is going to give you a percentage, and this is your reliability overall. When you are putting in observation results, you'll recall that you can put in a shadow scoring observer name if you indeed did participate in a shadow score. If you did, make sure that you are putting in that name. This tells the system to flag that, and it helps us and for network administrators to know how many of their sites and how many classrooms have been shadow scored. Okay, so if you want to view those observation results, once the observation has been completed and it's been entered in, a summary scoring sheet will be available. And to do that, you'll click on the observation. You're going to see this in the system, a summary scoring sheet. If you go up to the top right, there is a floppy disk icon that you can click on, and it's going to create a drop-down menu. You'll see there that it says Excel, PDF, or Word. You can do it in any of those formats, whichever one suits you best. This may be useful if you want to reflect on your own observation, or if you need to consult with the site administrator or your network administrator. For whatever the reason may be, this is here for you to use. Additionally, if you're looking on the home page, you can go up to the top. You can click on the reports button. If you click that, you're going to drop it down. It'll say observer reports, and then you can generate an observer reliability report. Be sure you tell the system which school year, semester, and network that you're in, and then click that run report button. When you run the report, it's going to generate the report in the system, which you can just look at. But if you want to save it and then play around with that data, again, there's a floppy disk icon that you can see there. It's in the red box. You can actually export that also as an Excel, PDF, or a Word document. A couple things to keep in mind when you're entering in your observation into the portal. Make sure you're double checking all the information to be sure that you're entering in as accurately as possible. Once it's submitted in there, we can't really edit it anymore, and we have to follow a certain process to do that. Additionally, be sure that your observations are being entered within 10 days of the observation. And then make sure you contact, if you're a local observer, your lead agency, or if you're a third-party observer, make sure you're talking with PCARD about what they want you to do with your hard copy score sheets. And be sure you're following all guidelines or processes throughout the year that the lead agency and ULL have established regarding observation protocol and reporting, and then what to do with those hard copy score sheets. All right, so lastly, what supports exist for you? So if you're having some technical problems, you can always email systemsupport@la.gov. You can also look at the class observation system user guide if you want to do it yourself. It basically gives a more comprehensive overview of everything that I just went over. If you're having a separate kind of issue, or you're not really sure what kind of issue you're having, you just know something's wrong, you can always email us here at the department at earlychildhood@la.gov, or you can reach out to your lead agency or ULL. That's always a good place to start, and then they can kick it up the chain to us if you really need. I want to thank you guys for your time today. You do really important service for us and for the kids around the state. And like we said, if there's anything that we can do to support you, we're always here. It's part of our job. And thank you for all that you do. Take care.